Welcome to DU Digimon.
Hello and welcome to DU Digimon and welcome to yet another video on the channel. If you're liking our content, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel and ding that notification bell so you're not missing out on any of the latest content. We really appreciate all the support, guys, and it's only going to help us grow and grow and grow so we can bring out more content to you this year and beyond. Anyways, speaking of content, a lot of Digitubers have had one thing on their mind recently, which is the banned and restricted list, and we are no different here. So we've been chatting about kind of what cards could potentially make the cut. Obviously, we've not actually had a ban list since March 1st now, but back when we had Bukamon, Apoclymon, Garbamon X, Garurumon X and Anubismon all put to one. Fairly preemptively over here, we only had those decks at full power for about 2 weeks until those kind of got implemented in terms of like the BT15 kind of stuff there. But you know, we need to have a think about what kind of things could potentially go onto the ban list now, or come off the ban list, or dare we say, what might not change at all. So let's take a look at the cards that we have been discussing, which will be very similar to what other YouTubers have been looking at as well. However, we do have the aspect of looking at these cards from a team perspective, and this Ukamon from BT16 is a key part of that team perspective. Some of us in the team do think that this card should be limited. It does help speed up decks that are already very fast, aka Numamon, incredibly well, and really does a lot to help those decks. But on the flip side, and Charles made a very good point with this one, it does also help decks which don't have as much searching, that do struggle with their consistency and their speed, to kind of give them a little bit of an extra leg up. So it is very generic. Obviously it does Digivolve for 1 on top of anything, so you can also choke your opponent on the first turn, then hatch out and start kind of building your secondary stack once you've done your searching. But you know, of the two Ukamons, for me anyway, I do personally think that the promo one is possibly the bigger contender, and bigger as well, both in terms of card image as well, because for whatever reason this card image is bigger than all of the others. I don't know why. Also, I'll just full screen this, be uber professional, there we go. But anyways, I think of the two personally, I think the promo one is more a potential hit contender than BT16 for a couple of reasons. One, Bandai, although they did this last ban list with the BT15 stuff, may not want to kind of ban stuff from BT16 this early, you know, especially assuming they did that to BT15 and it did ultimately hurt sales for BT15, so they may wish to avoid that to allow more sales of BT16. Obviously everyone's had a good amount of BT16, which may also be why they've kind of not done a ban list, because they were at an awkward point between the ending of BT15 and the start of BT16, and now BT16 is here everywhere, including in the UK where we had massive delays. You know, maybe now they'll start thinking about it. But of the two, I do think the promo Ukamon is the one to go with. The other reason being is because of the fact that it helps less decks than the other Ukamon. And you might be thinking, well, surely that's a reason for the BT16 one to be banned. But the thing is, because of that, the decks that can abuse this do really well with it. I mean, again, looking at Numamon, I actually think Numamon benefits more from this card than the BT16 one. The fact is, Numamon doesn't care about what rookies it runs anyway, you know, especially if you're running a purple base or a red base version of Numamon, or dare I say, a yellow base version of Numamon. I came across that the other day, and technically there are probably some Numamon that can Digivolve on yellow, but I think, but yeah, yellow vaccine Numamon is not something I thought I would run into on DCGO, like a fusion between Numamon and yellow vaccine. Claire. But this one, because of the fact they don't care about their rookies, helps them gain more memory, which means they can then have more memory to play out more of their Numamon, which are super cheap. So I think of the two, this Numamon is probably the one to hit. It's also the older card of the two, not by too much really, but you know, it is the older card of the two. So I do think that this Ukamon is probably the more likely culprit to get limited to 1 than the BT16 one. Obviously, let me know what you guys think in the comments. We want to hear as many of your opinions as possible. You know, so really let us know what you think. The next card we're going to talk about, kind of keeping on with potential things that could hurt Numemon, which obviously Numemon is still really good here and doing decent in Japan as well, but nowhere near as good as it was. Numemon X is another contender potentially for a ban list over here. This one and the next card we'll talk about are two of the greatest facilitators of Numemon's strategy. This one, obviously you have that on deletion, so if this were to be killed, which obviously because it's very small is quite likely, and it just happens to have a Numemon underneath it or an X antibody, it will then gain that on deletion, play one Digimon card with Numemon its name from your trash without paying a cost. So because it's been deleted, that also counts itself. It then has the same effect for its on deletion, which means that the Monzemons that you've got, if they die, they can then play out this Numemon X and they can just keep looping it and do that whole thing again. This is probably the card that you have to play around the most when you're going up against Numemon, just because it stops you from going, okay, I want to delete everything, but you can't always delete this or delete the thing that this is under, because you don't want them to just bring out more Numemon. Obviously, if you've got something like Crimson Blaze, it's not so big of an issue, but Crimson Blaze can only do so much. It can't delete the Monzemons, for example. Yeah, this is definitely the card that you have to play around with more, and it's definitely a contender for one. To be limited to one, along with the next two cards we're going to talk about, because we did come up with three cards that are directly from the Numemon deck, not necessarily generic support. The next one is Monzemon X. Monzemon X kind of needs no introduction. It is possibly one of the most devastating cards in the deck. Obviously, it plays out another Numemon if you've got Monzemon or X antibody underneath it, and then when you do play something, it then minuses 2,000 on one of your opponent's Digimon for each Numemon, for each Digimon, in fact, that you have in place. That includes your Ukomons as well. So Monzemon is absolutely a very powerful card. Obviously, it's got no inheritable, but it doesn't really need that because you're usually cheating out the Platinum Numemon anyway. So you don't really need it, but it's incredibly strong. Does a board wipe, and just is a devastating card, man. I think this does more damage than this does, whereas this you have to play around more. So of these two, these are two likely hits, I would say. I think a lot of people would agree as well. But we'll have to see what exactly will actually happen. The other one we did think about, this was Alex that thought about this one, is the RB1 Monzemon. It may not do as much on paper as the other two, but it's a Mega Zoo type card. You can hard play it out. You then take a new one from your trash, which you'll always have, and then you gain 2 memories. So this card will only cost you 5 to play out. Digivolves 3 on top of a Numemon in name. Then on play or when Digivolving, it does an Odin's Breath, so it -3s and Security Attack -1 on one of your opponent's Digimon. But the most dangerous thing about it is the fact that it gives Security Attack +1 to any of your Monzemon or Numemon that this Digimon has Digivolved into. So your Platinum Numemons and your Monzemon X will gain Security Attack +1, which, because you do have access to jamming in Numemon with stuff like the Satsuki, can be very devastating and really kind of hit up the clock. So this could potentially be a secret contender for that hit. I potentially think these two are more likely, but this could be a potential hit as well, especially because it is quite a bit older than the other two. So you never know. This could be the potential hit to the deck. The next card we're going to talk about, keeping with yellow cards, is Patamon from BT14. Now, Patamon is the main enabler of yellow armor. Without this card, that deck does not work, because with this, you go up, you Digivolve into a level 4, which, if you've not been able to manipulate the security, is entirely up to RNG, but if you have manipulated your security, you know exactly what you can Digivolve into. You can then go into a Rapidmon, which normally would cost you 4 on top of a yellow Digimon, and that's both for the ST17 and the BT8, and you can do that for completely free. This enables all of the plays in yellow armor. This is the rookie that they always want to see, and this coupled with TK from the same set is devastating, because it will add a card to the stack as part of its effect, gain a memory from its own inheritable, which is just weird, and then we'll also gain a memory from the TK. Also, although they don't play this in yellow armor, if you Digivolved into a BT15 Gatomon with that effect, the Gatomon recognises that a security has been removed because it Digivolves at the time the security is removed, so you then gain memory from that as well. Work that out. But yeah, Patamon I think is definitely a really strong contender for a limit from Yellow Vaccine. You know, yeah, it will hurt the Angel stuff going forward, but the other kind of thing we were thinking about is if you hurt Numemon, Yellow Vaccine will just take its place. You know, and you kind of need to nip both in the bud if you're looking to put restrictions on them, if indeed we need those restrictions. Next card, keeping with yellow armor, is Emissary of Hope, which I think of the two of these ones, Patamon technically, I mean, there's an argument to say which card is better than which, but Emissary I think potentially could be the more likely hit out of the two. You know, granted, I think some people do quite happily play this at 1 anyway, you know, but those that can play it or do wish to play it at 2 or more, absolutely can with very little drawback. I mean, this card can, its security effect is kind of neither here or there. You play out a Patamon and add this card to your hand. Enough said. But its main effect, search the security, digivolve into 1 yellow level 6 or lower Digimon with the vaccine trait without paying the cost, then shuffle the security and get recovery +1 if you've got a TK. That is so busted if you've managed to kind of manipulate your security in any way. So if you need a level 3 to go into a level 4, boom, done. If you need a level 5 to go into a level 6, boom, done. Could that level 6 be Magnamon X? Yes, it's a yellow vaccine. Could it be Rapidmon X? Yes, that's a yellow vaccine. So you could go into those incredibly powerful cards for a cost of 1, which is yeah, that is very busted. I mean, the one thing to take into consideration when we're looking at these any sort of ban list stuff though is how much it also impacts Japan. And yellow armor is not doing particularly well out in Japan. Obviously, the main deck really at the moment is blue armor, and then the Liberator stuff is doing quite well. But the thing you have to bear in mind as well is that a lot of the Japanese meta is based around new stuff equals good. I play new stuff, whereas a lot of our meta is let's take old stuff and make it really busted. And I think Emissary of Hope can go a long way to both of those sides of the argument. So could be a very big contender for a limitation. Next up, we've got a Magnamon X. So Magnamon X, we're not saying this card should be banned or limited. You know, we're saying potentially this card needs an errata, which we understand, you know, we talked about this last night. It would be a massive pain in the arse to do, you know, to send out free copies of Magnamon X's as promos or as errata cards or whatever. You know, but the fact that it gets its effect from an armor form and not just like X Antibody or Magnamon is really, really, really too good. Like, there's a lot of yellow armor cards. I mean, if you've got, what's it called? Is it Sheepmon? The Armadillo one? I don't know. But you've got that in your sources, you then get your Magnamon X effect, which is dumb. That's so dumb. The other thing as well is obviously with it being a triple colour, and this is kind of not put in this because we ultimately decided as a team that it wasn't necessarily noteworthy for it to be banned, but this gives you a -24k if you use Heaven Judgment, because it's 3 colours. It takes all 3 of those colours into consideration and also has its initial trigger. I saw a deck on one of East's videos today. It was like an Imperial Toolbox video where they could get up to -42 and half of the colours were from this guy to do that. So, you know, he is absolutely busted. I wouldn't say you errata his colour necessarily, but that armour form part of the effect. So instead of making it Magnamon X Antibody or an armor form, make it Magnamon or an X Antibody. It'd make go a bit more classic maybe. Obviously the armor form does make it more accessible for armor decks. You know, because it's yellow, you could technically use this in your Sylphimon stuff, because it could digivolve on those because they're dual color yellow. You know, same with the Armadillo stuff, because they're black yellow. You know, so yeah, it does make it accessible for those decks, but obviously the decks that can really use this are yellow armor and blue armor. So, you know, like I say, we're not looking at potentially limiting this card or banning this card outright, but definitely some form of a errata would be great. Next, I'm going to touch on this one briefly. It's BT11 Mirage Galgamon. Now, Mirage Galgamon's kind of not the best deck anymore in terms of the meta, but it is still very potent when it gets going. Personally, for me, I've been having some troubles getting my Galgamon stuff working since regionals. I'm having way more fun with birds at the moment. But if you wanted to harm the Galga deck, you hit them right here. It would potentially be too much of a limitation, to be honest. But this would be the card that you could hit. Potentially semi-limit it, if that's something that that Bandai would ever look at doing, which is something I think, and the team, agrees with me. In terms of potentially having semi-limits as a thing in the card game, we do think that'd be really cool. Mirage Galgamon from BT11 would be the hit if you were going to hit Galgamon. Not necessarily one you need to do though. Next, talking about semi-limits and the idea of semi-limits is Apoclymon. Apoclymon is too good to come off of the limited list, even with all of the stuff, the purple-based stuff that helped facilitate it being kind of limited on in terms of like the Gabumons, the Gabumon X's and Garurumon X's, blah blah blah. But the issue of it being limited to one is that Dark Masters is kind of completely, well, not dead, but the Dark Masters can choose to not use its own boss monster and instead go for Omni control stuff, like Omnizu stuff. So by putting it at 2, you're not kind of giving players so much that it'll become the best deck again, but it just allows you to facilitate it more as it was originally intended. So I think this could potentially be a semi-limit option. Definitely not off the ban list, but semi-limitation. The next card to look at, and no one in the team agrees with me on this one, but I could dream, is Greymon X coming back to 2. So again, a semi-limit. I'm not asking for it to come off the list entirely, but a semi-limit of this would be much appreciated. Greymon Greymon's gone from having all of the support in the whole wide world to nothing. And anyone that says that BT17 stuff is Greymon support can do one, because it's stuff for Omnimon. We can't use it in Greymon. It doesn't do anything for us. So I think by putting Greymon X to 2, and again, not even off the ban list, put it as semi-limit it. I think you could be looking at it as speeding up Greymon and just giving it a little bit of love until it gets new support. It's still very good. The protection effect isn't always live, but that reduction cost is. But saying that, there are also cards that can punish it. I think technically speaking, when does Digimon digivolve into a card? Is it digivolving by effect? Nah, probably not, but it's a reduction of cost, isn't it? But I think personally, you could bring this back to 2 and it'd be fine. I'd love to test that personally, and see if that goes. Next, we've got a couple of suggestions from one of our main commenters on the channel, Melvin Altena, I believe your name is Melvin Altena. Melvin Altena 83, which really appreciate you commenting, dude. You're always one of our main commenters. I absolutely adore it. So thank you so much, mate. The suggestions that he's given specifically were Dory Greymon from BT7, and then the next card we'll talk about as well. And actually, I'm inclined to agree. There are a lot of cards that do what Dory Greymon does now, giving security attack +1 as an inheritable, having the protection from from the one digivolving effect. There's loads of cards that do that now. I mean, Magnemon X literally ignores all things your opponent does. So I think this could potentially be a thing to take off the limited list entirely. Yes, you have got the black-purple collision stuff, but I don't think it would power up that deck so much to the point it becomes completely busted. I mean, we'd have to wait and see, maybe, just in case, but I kind of agree. I think this card could be, a card that can come off the ban list quite handily. And then next is Jet Sylphimon, which I don't think he watches other YouTubers, but if he does, and he is watching, Mario, I think you'd appreciate Melvin Altena's next suggestion here. So taking Jet Sylphimon off of the ban list. The thought behind this, and Melvin Altena kind of explained it really well, is that the new kind of Jet Sylphy stuff is green, red, and will not use any of this. There will obviously be new yellow hybrid stuff because JP, is it JP? has been kind of made black yellow. But ultimately, yellow hybrid as a deck will not be using this as often. And hybrid, hybrid decks are mixing and matching, and all that sort of stuff. So potentially this card wouldn't be as good as it was before, and could potentially see itself coming off the limited list and going back up to 1. It would certainly help more offshoot decks like like Mario's Marcus deck that he played for his last regionals. I remember seeing that video and him explaining it. Was really fun deck by the looks of it. But this could potentially be another off the ban list kind of thing. So I think great suggestion, dude. But that's all of the cards we're going to be looking at in terms of what we think could be put on or could be taken off the ban list. The other thing to talk about as well is, do we even need a ban list? Is that something that we actually need? Sam actually put it really well in the team. The meta's in a really good place at the moment. This is coming from him, and he's not really a meta player. He plays a lot of rogue stuff, and he plays that against meta, but he doesn't really play the meta decks. So he's very much kind of thinking that the overall balance of Digimon is really good at the moment. That's including in Japan as well. Japan's still quite a diverse meta as well. I think Blue Hybrid is definitely still the best deck out there, and may need a potential hit. Obviously, we've not discussed any of those kind of Japanese cards yet. Obviously, we will be once the sets marry up. But who knows? Maybe the Blue Hybrid stuff could get a preemptive hit over here. You never know. They did it with Apoclymon. Maybe they could do that with Blue Hybrid over here. Who knows? But does the ban list need changing? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think the meta is at a point where we need another ban list, or do you think nothing changes? I could see an argument either way. But thank you very much for tuning in, guys. I will sign us off now. Please make sure to join us on Friday for our first match in a while, which will be between Magnamon X and Rapidmon X. So stay tuned for that. We've got Blue Armor versus Bunnies. I couldn't ask for a better first match for BT16 on the channel. Make sure to like and subscribe and ding that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next video. But until then, keep it digital.